Hey everyone, we're here at PAX now, after Gamescom, at the Gigabyte booth. So Gigabyte's got a couple of their RTX cards. We did not see them at Gamescom, and the ones here are from the gaming series. So there's gaming OC cards. There's a 2080 and a 2080 Ti behind the glass. They are, as I understand it, probably the reference PCB designs. We were not allowed to take it apart this time, go figure, but I can see the cooler though, so we can give you some information on the cooler for Gigabyte's new series for the RTX 20 launch, and we'll go through some of that in today's video. Before that, this video is brought to you by the NZXT E-Series power supplies. The E-Series PSUs are high-end power supplies with real-time digital voltage and temperature monitoring, per-rail wattage measurements, and data logging functionality for power usage. The E-Series PSUs also come with a 10-year warranty all the way down to the 500-watt unit, and they run fully modular and with silent fan operating modes. Learn more at the link below. So for the cooler on this one, I think this is the 2080 in front of me. Both are 3-fan coolers. This is going to be really common for this generation because NVIDIA is now making its own dual axial cooler. So NVIDIA is kind of seeping into the market where the AIB partners typically would make their low-end cards with dual fan coolers. So you're going to see a lot of tri-fan coolers for this generation, and that's what we have here today. So 2 3-fan coolers for each of the cards. It's the same cooler as far as I can tell right now. I should note, nothing is 100% final. I can tell by looking at it, some of this stuff is handmade, so it's a little bit early, but we have some basics. And one of the basic things we have is Gigabyte now, so the backplate on this, it does not have, at least on this model, that copper block on back of the GPU that we previously criticized as being non-functional. So that's cool to see. They got rid of the useless block on the back and just went with a straight backplate. It's an aluminum backplate, and there are, in the present model, there are 2mm thick thermal pads in at least 2 locations, maybe 3, between the back of the PCB and the backplate, and those are behind the GDDR6 memory and part of the VRM. So it's not crucial to sync heat into a backplate, but it does help. And one thing I should note is if you touch the back of a card and it feels really hot, that's a good thing. That means the backplate is doing its job. It's sinking the heat away from the parts that matter. So they've got thermal pads there. We've tested this in the past with other vendors, with other manufacturers, and have found that it actually works quite well. Not sure if it does on this, but it probably will be the same basic principle. So for the cooler itself, it's got 3 separate fin stacks. So there's a fin stack over here on the I/O side of the card, and that one's the most interesting because, as I said, this is probably almost certainly a reference PCB design, at least right now. And the reference PCB design looks to have some of the VRM components on the I/O side. So typically you see it all kind of on one side to the right of the GPU, unless it's like an HBM card, in which case you have an L-shaped VRM. But this one has part of the VRM over here, part over here, and from the top, off the top of my head, the 2080 Ti, I think, is a 13+3 setup, and we'll talk about this more later. And the 2080 non-Ti is something like an 8+2 or 8+3. We'll talk about it closer to launch. But that's the layout we have. So part of the VRM's on one side, parts on the other, and that's why there are 3 separate fin stacks, one of which is straight over the GPU, one's over the right side VRM, one's over the left side VRM, and for the rest of the cooling solution, there's about a 1mm or less, maybe 0.5mm thick thermal pad between the G6 memory and the cold plate, or actually a connecting plate for the memory that goes to the cold plate, which is something we've seen before. It tends to work pretty well. So they're connecting the memory straight into the cold plate, which is on the GPU. It'll make the GPU temperatures appear higher, but in reality that's because it's sharing the cooling solution with the memory as well, and that actually tends to be a net positive, but depends on the design. Heat pipes, there are 3 on this side that I can see. There are 4 on this side that I can see. There might be more in there. As I said, not allowed to take it apart, but that's my understanding right now. An 8 and a 6-pin connector, and then there is a metal plate between the inductors and the fin stack over here, so they've got direct contact between even the inductors and the cooling, from what we can see right now. And then I think final item of note here that's pretty interesting is this has 2 fan headers and also asynchronous cooling design, which is something I think NVIDIA has publicly talked about at this point, but this is technically, this is one of those areas where EVGA did that first before NVIDIA. This isn't a Gigabyte thing doing what they did. This is NVIDIA doing what EVGA did with the asynchronous cooling. So that's a point of interest for the future, that there are 2 connectors and it will have asynchronous fan, which just means that you can run the fans at different speeds if you want to cool the GPU differently from the VRM components to the memory components, stuff like that. And I think that covers the entire cooling solution for the card. So this is the Gigabyte, or the Aorus as it may be called later, gaming OC model, and we saw the 2080 and 2080 Ti today. What we don't know is how do the custom PCBs look, and we'll find that out closer to launch most likely. The custom PCBs, if you missed our Gamescom coverage, will be coming a bit after launch for the most part, because NVIDIA gave everyone extremely late notice. So most of the cards you're going to see are going to be 3-fan coolers, maybe some new cooler designs and upfits, and then the reference PCB with custom stuff coming out later. So that's it for the Gigabyte booth at PAX. Thank you for watching. As always, you can go to store.gamersnexus.net to help us out directly, and go to patreon.com/gamersnexus to help us out there as well. Subscribe for more. I'll see you all next time.